Hello everyone, we just learned about all the bones in human body and today we are going to learn about the joints. As we all know that bones are very hard and strong, but do you know how the human body is so flexible and bending? So this is only possible because of joint. So what is joint? A joint is found where the bones meet. It is a connection between the two bones in the skeleton system. A joint is also called an articulation. Okay, now let's go to the classification of joint. So joint can be classified either by their structural or by their functional classification. So by functional classification, we refer to the extent of mobility. Functional classification of joint, number one is synarthrosis, that is immovable joint that are fused together for strength. And example of synarthrosis is skull suture, epiphyseal plate, joint between first rib and manubrium. Second is amphiarthrosis, that is slightly movable joint. An example of amphiarthrosis is vertebral joint of symphysis pubis. Now we have diarthrosis, they are freely movable joint, and example of diarthrosis are joint of the extremities like shoulder joints. So functional classification of joints, we have synarthrosis, diarthrosis and amphiarthrosis. So here is the picture of synarthrosis. The example of synarthrosis is skull bone. Then we have the arthrosis, that is shoulder joint, and we have amphiarthrosis, that is joint of the vertebra. And then by structure we have fibrous joint, synovial joint and cartilaginous joint. Fibrous joint is immovable, synovial joint tend to be freely movable and cartilaginous joint exhibit a range of mobilities. Okay, so let's talk about fibrous joint. In fibrous joint, there is lot of dense connective tissue and no joint cavity. And these bones are for connecting bones that doesn't require a lot of movement. So there are three types of fibrous joint, that is suture, syndesmosis and gomphosis. Suture, that is found only in skull, and syndesmosis are connected by ligament, which are fibrous tissue which can found them between radius and ulna, and gomphosis found only in mouth, that is they only occur between the and tooth in an avascular socket. So you can look at the picture here. We have picture of the suture that is found only in skull. Then we have syndesmosis. Look at the ligament between radius and ulna. And then we have gomphosis that is found only in mouth. Okay, so now we will come to the cartilaginous joint. In these, bones are connected by cartilage and it lacks a joint cavity and are not particularly movable. Okay, so there are two types of cartilaginous joint, that is primary cartilaginous joint and secondary cartilaginous joint. In primary cartilaginous joint, we have synchondrosis that contain hyaline cartilage. An example is epiphyseal plate. We can see them in epiphyseal plate, in growth plate. And secondary cartilaginous joint, we have symphysis that contain fibrocartilage. They are compressible and we can find them between vertebra and in pelvis. Okay, so we are done with the fibrous joint, cartilaginous joint, and now we will learn about synovial joint. This joint poses a cavity and the articular end of the bones forming a joint are enclosed in a fibrous capsule. As a result, they are separated by a narrow cavity, the articular cavity, which is filled with fluid called synovial fluid. So synovial joint contain a cavity filled with fluid. It has articular cartilage, covers each opening bone surfaces protecting the end of the bones. Joint cavity, this contains synovial fluid which is very viscous, containing hyaluronic acid secreted by cells. So synovial membrane, these fluid act as lubricant and reduces friction between the layer of cartilage. The synovial membrane together with the fibrous layer compromise the articular capsule and beyond the membrane reinforcing ligament, nerves and blood vessel. Beyond this basic structure, some synovial joint have fatty parts or disc of fibrocartilage separating the articular surfaces. These are also known as menisci. Okay, so after synovial joint, we will learn about types of synovial joint. So there are 6 types of synovial joint, that is planar, hinge, pivot, condyloid, saddle and ball and socket. So there are 6 types of synovial joint. Pivot joint found between C1 and C2 vertebra. Then we have hinge joint. Hinge joint, example of hinge joint is elbow joint. Then we have saddle joint found between trapezium, carpal bones and first metacarpal bone. Plane joint between tarsal bones. Condyloid joint between radius and carpal bone of wrist. Then we have ball and socket joint, that is shoulder and hip joint. Okay guys, so here we are done with fibrous, cartilaginous and synovial joint. So from this chart, do a quick revision of fibrous, cartilaginous and synovial joint. Okay, so after learning about types of joint, we will learn about types of motion produced by the joint, that is non-axial movement, uniaxial movement, biaxial movement and multi-axial movement. Non-axial means slipping movement and uniaxial, that is movement in only in one plane. Biaxial, that is movement in 2 planes and multi-axial movement, that is movement in all 3 planes. Okay, beyond this motion can be gliding, angular and rotation motion. Gliding occur when one bone slips over other, like intertarsal and intercarpal, and then we have angular, that is angle between 2 bones changes, that is flexion, extension, we do hyperextension, we do abduction, adduction, and then we have rotation, that is turning of bone around its own axis. It happen in hip or shoulder, internal rotation, external rotation, pronation, supination, plantar flexion, dorsiflexion. These are the other type of motion which are produced by the bones. Okay guys, so here we complete our basic about bones and that complete our introduction to skeleton system. If you have any queries, do let me know in the comment section below. And thank you for watching. Take care. Bye bye.